Thanks.
Cheers.
Cool, thanks all for coming. So today we're going to talk about dev and test and about how we approach it as a shared journey rather than two journeys, which one begins when the other ends. So what is all this journey about, and what actually we're going to talk about is about the communication that the software engineering team and testing have about the responsibility that we all share, and it's not like one man's or one woman's responsibility, it's like shared among the teams, about the processes and the tools we use. But first, a little bit about ourselves.
So my name's Andrew Johnston. I've been working for PwC for just over 3 years. I did a degree in construction engineering and management, and then joined as a tech consultant. Over the past sort of 2.5 years, I've been operating as a software tester, and you know it's been a long and interesting journey. But I've picked up a lot of things along the way and improved greatly over that time. And it's just to share some of the stuff that we do in PwC with you guys to hopefully give you an understanding and help you out.
And I'm Theo Tsompanidis. I know it's not the easiest surname, but I'm a software engineer. I'm a senior software engineer in PwC. My experience has been so far in healthcare research and fintech, and currently we both work in PwC in the new ventures and blockchain team. So a couple of words for the team. What we do actually is to get an idea and create a product out of this idea. We work with big clients like big corporations, big organizations, down to startups. And a very basic function of what we do is to develop software. So in the team we have product people, we have project people, and we have the software engineering team. So in order to talk a little bit about this process of creating an idea to product, Andrew's going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so typically we'll start off with an idea. It might be a startup idea, it might be a business idea within an organization. And you know, if we cut to the chase to the point where we actually start building out what we've been asked for, we'll build it, we'll then measure what we've built, and we'll learn from that. And the whole purpose of learning from that is so that we can shift left with our testing. It's so that, you know, we've built this feature or functionality, we've measured how users are actually using it. They're, you know, actually 50% of the users aren't using it, and it's because they dislike one particular thing. We'll learn from that, we'll shift it left, and then we'll actually take our approach to, you know, user research, and we'll change it so that we get to that assumption or that conclusion faster, and we aren't left with a feature that 50% of our user base won't use because they don't like something in particular.
So in that terms, the next thing we're going to talk about is about the involvement of the two functions that we have throughout the process of development. But before going into that, I want to give a little bit of a background. So the projects we develop are based on the microservices architecture. We deploy on the cloud, and we follow the DevOps approach. That means that we have our CI/CD processes and pipelines, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later on. Also, another thing to say is that this graph, these lines here, represent the involvement, but they are a little bit shifted, so we can just see that clear. It's not that development does more than testing, they're just shifted. So the first phase, let's get an example. Here I'm going to talk about a new feature, all right? So we need to implement a new feature, and how we do that. Just to simplify things, I'll use an example of the bicycle. Like, let's say that our new feature is the bicycle. First, it's the design process, in which my part as a developer is to get actually the requirements of this new feature, and try to design what I'm going to do, what I'm going to develop. So this process involves talking to other software engineers, talking to the architect, talking to product people, and try to find out how I'm going to do that. So in the bicycle example, I have to say, okay, the bicycle needs to have 2 wheels, needs to have a seat, needs to have the chain, and it needs to spin and everything. When I do that, I'll go there to Andrew to talk, because actually you can talk about
Yeah, no worries. So, I mean, while Theo's thinking about how he's going to build his bicycle, I'll be asking him questions all along the way. I'll be like, okay, you're building a bike. How far do you have to go? Okay, great, you're going 80 miles. How quickly do you need to get there? Okay, 2 hours, fine. You're going to be going pretty quickly on a bicycle. The next question then is, what happens if it rains? Are you going to get soaked? The next question then is, okay, well, do you need to bring anybody with you? Do you need to bring anything with you? And also, actually, are you able to operate a bicycle? Or do you need some other way of doing this? So, all the while Theo's doing his design, and I'm there with him, I'm involved in that process, and I'm sort of testing his ideas against the real world, or being the voice of a user in that situation.
And there comes the sense check. So after we've done that, we've done the design, and Andrew has asked the right questions, and he has done his research as well. We have the sense check, which I put down everything I have. I talk with Andrew, is that right? What do you think of that? So let's go. An important thing here to say is that before we write one line of code, both functions have come together and have already worked together, both development and testing. We'll just present some of the tools we use for each process. So one of the tools we use here is Slack for communication, but also we have a lot of personal chatting.
Yeah, it's very much face-to-face, because that's where you get the most beneficial interaction. I've put up just a little image of Gizmo for anybody that knows who Gizmo is, or doesn't know who Gizmo is. Gizmo is a character from the film Gremlins. He's this cute little fluffy, cuddly thing. He's very predictable. He sings every now and again, but he's just nice to have around. And I compare myself to Gizmo starting off. It's like, okay, I'm just asking you all these questions and being nice, fluffy, but later on, then Gizmo spawns another character called Spike. And Spike is much less predictable. He does lots of things that other people wouldn't, and he just sometimes causes terror.
He does. So that's our first checkpoint, and after this point we start building the product. So the next phase, which is building, in this phase, what I'm doing as a developer is start building. Now here there's a couple of things to talk about. First of all is like test-driven development and what we're doing. So how we have approached this issue is that before starting writing my code, I will write just a few of tests just for the happy path. So I know what input I give and what I expect from the outside, but just a few tests. Then I start writing the code, like doing my changes and everything. And after I do that, I write the big bunch of tests. So we have like acceptance tests, we have unit tests, we have integration tests. We're going to talk about that in a while. The important bit here is that, because as I said, we use DevOps, we have CI/CD pipelines. So in our CI/CD pipelines, we have the testing as one of the steps. And for that test to run, I need to write them. It's not only the tester's job to write something, but it's my responsibility as well. So after I finish writing what I consider to be the right code for the new feature, I will write all the tests I believe that this feature needs to have.
Yeah, and it's not just about Theo writing doing all of his TDD up front by himself. I'll have input into that as well. I'll be asking him questions along the way about the stuff that he's built. It's like, well, do you need to test this little bit? There's not an acceptance test in there for that, or there's not an integration test where it joins onto another service. And I'll just along the way, as I think about things, is I could be checking something else, or I could be looking at another piece of code in another service, and I go, how does what you're doing actually impact that? And there will be a constant discussion, even as Theo's building it. It's like, what are you building it? How are you building it? And, you know, what scenarios have you got in there, so that when it gets to our pipeline and Tesco Green, yay, I know what's in there, and I know that he's covered off the scenarios, and it's not just a test of gone green. That's great. It's I know that this has been tested pretty thoroughly at this point.
So yeah, that's just some technologies we use. We like using Node. We program in JavaScript, and we use Docker for containerization, and Swagger as well with Node. So the next step in that process is the code review. So when I'm happy with my changes, when I chatted with Andrew about this new feature, this is where I feel it's ready. I will put it out there so other engineers can see the change, can make any comment on that, and also Andrew, like the testing has a big role in that. For this we use GitLab, and that's where like stuff starts happening.
Yeah. So this is where I turn more from cute fluffy gizmo into his not very nice sometimes compadre called Spike. And it's not that, you know, this is like to fish out bugs or to, you know, say, Theo, you didn't do this right. It's more just like, I'm going to start doing stuff that's unexpected here. I want to see what the error scenarios are. I want to see if it does error, does it give me an informative response, or does it fall over and, you know, I can't use it after that. The service is gone.
Yeah. The next stage then, it's refactoring. So in the refactoring stage, my part is to address all the comments. You know, I have lots of comments from other software engineers or from testing. I need to do that. So for example, okay, really did you need to use square wheels, like wheels are, you know, circles around? So I will do all the corrections and everything in this part here.
And one thing to really note here is that all of this, while it's happening, it's not just mine and Theo's responsibility, it's also the responsibility of the rest of the team. Everybody's getting involved. You know, while we don't have product on this little graph, product is very much involved. You know, development and testing, it's not just me as a tester and Theo as the engineer, it's all of the other engineers in the team that have been working on the other services, and it's so important to get them involved and get their feedback, because they might have been working on something that Theo has no idea about, and, you know, I've done it this way and I found it was really useful, or it's like a really nice, succinct way to do it. It stops me from repeating the code that I've used previously. And, you know, it's really about taking ownership of the entire code base as a team.
And in that terms, and as we speak about tools and about the team's responsibility, so when I put my code review out there, I will attach it to somebody, to a software engineer that I want him or her to review it. But also we have a Slack channel, so whatever change we make, it goes to the Slack channel, so all the team can see what we did, so there is visibility in that stage as well. And then when we are done with refactoring, then that's when the merge to master comes. So now everybody's happy. I have addressed all the comments and I'm happy with that, with this change. And I think that this is the time when we need to push everything to master. So yeah, something we have noticed is that we use Git for our remote repos and everything. And also, as I said, we use CI/CD. That means that we have pipelines. So this is our merge to master pipeline. And what happens is that whenever I merge something to master, this pipeline will be triggered. So as you see here, there are some steps. There are first some static analysis, then it's all the tests that I've written, and Andrew is happy with that. Then it's build image, container scan. So this stage, container scan is because we use Node.js and we use npm and we have dependencies, and you know, npm downloads lots of dependencies. So we need to scan all them and see that they are safe enough to go to our project. And the last step is deploy to dev. So we have a dev environment, and the last step is to deploy there. So when we push something to master, we know that if the pipeline succeeds, we will have this new feature in our dev environment. And of course, as somebody would expect, if any of these steps fail, the whole pipeline fails. And then we have like an alert, we have a message in Slack to say that, okay, the pipeline failed, what happened, we get emails. So whoever, in this case, me, that I made the change, I need to go and investigate what happened there and why this failed.
Yeah, and while Theo's doing that, I'll be there with him. It'll be, right, okay, what information can I gather together that might help Theo diagnose what's gone wrong in the code?
You want to talk?
I can talk. So we use a lot of AWS. AWS is really useful. There's lots of services in there. So we use things like ECR for pushing our container to their container registry. We use EC2 instances for all of our cloud compute, all of their Elastic Block storage. We use their queue system for events and firing events for event-driven microservice-based architecture. We use SES for sending emails, Cognito for user pools, like extensively use AWS, and it's absolutely brilliant. And it also allows us to pipe out our logs to Kibana so that we can easily search them, which becomes really, really useful if something does go wrong in our development environment or demo or even through into production. We also use Kubernetes for resilience and sort of repeatability and fault recovery. So at this point, we'll go into our exploratory testing. Everything's in development and, linking up with all the other services that are running there too. And Spike turns into Spike and Friends. So this is where, we'll start running SBTs. I'll get a bunch of guys. It could be engineers from one of the other teams. It could be, Theo will probably be there. I'll be there, and other engineers, other testers to get, what would you do in this scenario? And if you're including people or can include people from outside the team, that's probably where you'll, or could find the most value, because they'll be using it in a way that, I've seen the code, Theo's seen the code, we've both been invested in it, and we're sort of anticipating where we should go. But somebody from outside will just go, well, I want to do this. That's not what I want to do at all. And they'll do all of the unexpected things you can think of.
All good things happen there. So after this point, and when we are happy with testing in dev, we'll go to deploy this to staging. So how we do that is, as I said, we use Git, and after we merge to master, it's been to dev, we are happy with the change, we need to release this change. In order to do that, we follow, first of all, the semantic versioning. So it's major, minor patch. And we use git tag for that. So we will git tag a change, and that's when our second pipeline is triggered. So as you see here in the second pipeline, we have again some static analysis for the code, again the tests run to make sure that everything works as expected, and then it's release. And then we have the two steps, which is deploy to demo and deploy to production. Now, whereas the pipelines are automated, the deploy to demo and deploy to production steps are semi-automated. That means that they are there, but I need to go and actively press the play button in order for this to be deployed. That's for us to be able to manage all this process and when we need something to be deployed. So in this case, for example, this change is deployed to demo, but it's not in production yet.
Yeah, and the reason for doing that is so that we can just perform some final checks. So it's sort of a proving environment. Demo is going to be the closest thing that you have to production. And here we'll be, running our performance tests to make sure that if we, stick 1,000 users through this, that it's not just going to fall over instantly, that we can actually handle that sort of volume and that it scales appropriately. And actually, I don't think it's on this, but we use things like, you can use JMeter and LoadRunner for that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And the last stage eventually is deploy to production. So when we're happy with the demo environment, then we are ready, we are full to go. So we click this button and we go to our change is going to production. And that's when we are still involved somehow. So we still need to check if the deployment has gone as expected, everything is good. And because here we're talking about real users, a different amount of users, it's important to keep an eye on this environment. So we keep monitoring that. We use tools like Prometheus and Grafana. So Prometheus is a tool that is gathering lots of statistics that we have from our environments, and it does have also alerts. So how we use alerts is there is a tool for Prometheus. It's like a plugin. It's called Alert Manager, and we just set up all our alerts. And if something happens, an alert goes to our Slack channel. And then there's Grafana as well to visualize all these statistics that Prometheus gathers, so we can have graphs, and you can investigate more and dig down to like fancy stuff.
Yeah, so this slide in itself, once something gets to production, we don't just like sort of cut it off and it's in the wild now. It can, whatever happens. It's back to what we were saying about shift left testing. It's about bringing that back and understanding, if users aren't using this, why did they not use it? Is because it was difficult, and bringing the metrics and the measuring stage after build back and learning from that, and that is a whole team responsibility. It's not something that Theo does on his own or I do on my own. We don't have sort of split stages, like it's not throw it over the fence. To me, when Theo's done building it and then I throw it back and go, you've done this, this and this, and it's broken. It's very much like, okay, right, why did it break? How do we not do this in the future? And if it's something that's good as well, it's not just about things that break. It's okay, what have you done here, or how have other testers done something, or how have other engineers done something, and really learning from that, and trying to avoid putting out poor quality code when we have the opportunity to put out really high standard code.
And now these are just some of the tools that we use for all these processes. We're a multi-project team, so we have different projects in different times. We don't use everything in one project, but there is a pool of different tools that we use for each project specifically, because it depends on the client, it depends on maybe the technologies that they use, it depends on the project itself and what we need to do with each project. So these are the main technologies our team uses. And I think that's pretty much it. That's how you can contact Andrew.
Yep.
And that's how you can contact me if you need anything. And also I think that we have a little bit of time to get any questions if you might have.
One of the bits of the pipeline was the static analysis section. Just wondered what tools you used for that and how it worked. It was the Linton section where
The lint.
Yeah, so that run static analysis just on the code base using ESLint for all of our Node.js stuff. So there's other stuff that we've been looking into around, even you can go into TF-lint, so like lint for all your Terraform files and stuff like that, and that's stuff that we're actively looking into as well.
would it actually stop the build process? Is it automated?
Yeah. Yeah, so it will actually stop the build process if it fails for, you can customize your lint rules, but we try to stay as much to standard as possible. But even if it was like a line too long, if we have it set, it'll fail the build for that, or an object that's not used.
So we use the Airbnb, I think, set of rules. There is a ready set of rules for lint, which is the Airbnb ones, is the one that they use. And we use this one, so we have to follow these rules. If we don't, at any point, it just breaks. Do we have any other questions?
Whenever you release production, do you use any tools to see how your users are using the microservices in order to
For now, we use Prometheus and Grafana. These are more for statistics for the environments themselves. So kind of it is a thing of like how much heavy use we have in these environments. Now, in terms of the use itself, it's more of a UI thing.
Yeah, so a lot of the projects that we've done recently have been very much back-end focused.
Yeah.
So on the front end, you can, and we know that there are people that use, mixin, and you're monitoring and analyzing, how long a user stayed on the page for, what they were actually clicking on, what their mouse was over at certain points in time. There's all of that you can do. For us, it would be, right, how many API calls did we get to a certain endpoint? And, if it's a new feature and it's not getting hit, why is it not getting hit? Like, is there something wrong with it? Are we seeing an increased number of, 401 requests, or is it 400s? People aren't actually inputting the right data. And is it something, that we need to look at our swagger because, it's not actually telling the user to do the right thing? But we would hope that long before it gets to production, it would be sorted.
Yeah.
Would you have any pushback or anything from the clients? Like, sounds great, like in theory, but like in terms of, it sounds great when you're doing talking, but between teams, but that takes time, like your estimates and stuff, and clients. Do you ever get any pushback from them in terms of, actually, we just want it out, or like?
That's going to be a constant battle,
Yeah.
no matter where you go.
But how, like, is that a big common thing, or how do you handle that, or is that brought in at the initial when you're designing the build? You're like, here, this is the pattern we're going to follow, and this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, I can start. Yes.
There's so much to say about this. So one of the big questions is, right, okay, you want to build a feature, you've got feedback that this is the next thing that you need, right, okay, we'll prioritize that in our backlog, we'll start building it, but you know what, why do you want to push something that hasn't been fully tested? Your reputation's at risk. If this comes down, you could potentially lose all the customers that you were trying to appease. The things that are better for our clients are to test things properly. Yes, talking takes lots of time, but it also helps to, niggle out all the little bugs before they actually even become bugs. And when you're testing against each other, and actually feeding that back, it's a lot about the communication with the client as well. It's like helping them to understand why this is important and why, don't just rush things to production because you think they need to be there. Like, feature test them properly, put them through dev, put them through staging. If you run a beta program, let users use your demo environment if they want new features fast to try them out. And even at that point, you should be thinking about things like canary builds, so shifting 5-10% of your traffic over to the new feature functionality and then sniffing it out that way too.
And also, just to add that we also use agile methodology, so we do Scrum, and that's something that has to do with the client as well. So we have Scrum meetings with the clients. So in our 2 weeks window, we'll always chat and try to estimate how much it's going, but because there is this constant communication with the planning, we try to keep that in track that way.
And so on the product engineering side, you said that you kind of don't leave things going out in the wild. Do you kind of like stay committed to the client for a while after the projects go live, or do you kind of arrange handovers to an internal team, that sort of thing, or how do you continue tracking that?
Yeah, so given that we do a lot of third-party work for new businesses, new business ideas, it's very much about, the sooner the client becomes involved and invested in the product from a development and engineering side, the easier that is. We will offer production support, but again, that's client specific. The ideal scenario is that, we've helped you get to this point. Here, take ownership of the code base, take ownership of committing stuff, tagging it, releasing it to production, and bring them on the journey with us as well.